The ability to speak clearly and communicate effectively will give you a competitive advantage in business and in life. So, why not invest your time, talent, and resources learning something that can position you for greatness? And that is where Seven Figure Media comes in. They have developed a very unique platform titled Public Speaking Made Simple. And platform is all designed to help you to learn, apply, and master effective public speaking skills and effective essential communication skills that will give you the competitive advantage in life. All of this is free. All you need to do is to reach out and get registered for this program. Remember, the name is Seven Figure Media. Welcome to another broadcast of Seven Figure Media. Today we will be looking at data, we will be looking at leadership, and we will be looking at business from the standpoint of what are the best practices, the best way to leverage data, leadership, and business strategies to position your business and your brand to become that 6, 7, and 9-figure brand. Today we have a number of extremely talented personalities in studio to support in the conversation. So without further delay, do join me in welcoming no other than Kanchan. Kanchan, has tremendous experience in business and tremendous experience in fashion consultancy. And I also want to welcome Clement Frank. And Clement Frank, he is an economist by profession, but he is also an author of several books, including Catalyst Leadership. So welcome Kanchan, welcome Frank. How are you guys?
We
We
are
are
good. I'm
good.
good. Like what Frank said, tired but grateful.
Yep.
What Frank?
Once you have life, you have to show
Mhm.
gratitude.
Mhm.
All right, to get the ball rolling, today we are going to be doing a deep dive into looking at issues that can position you to start and scale your 6, 7, and 9-figure brand. So, what I will do, I will take a deep dive into the importance of data. When we talk of data in the world of business in the context of starting and scaling your 6, 7, and 9-figure brand, it means many things. But what I will attempt to do today is to break down that concept. So if this is the first time you're hearing the term data, you will at least have an idea in terms of how to use it. Now, data can represent you taking the time to understand who is your ideal client. Of course, if you're going to attempt to start and scale a business, one of the first things that you want to invest your time, talent, and resources into is to identify your ideal client. Now, your ideal client can fall into many different perspectives. For example, you might be targeting the affluent in society, you may be targeting the middle class, or what we refer to as the average class. Now, each of these groups, they have specific interests, specific needs. And as a rising star in business who's attempting to start and scale your 6, 7, and 9-figure brand, it makes sense to invest your time, your talent, and your resources to really understand the specific demographics that you are targeting. Now, once you would have identified who is the ideal client, the next important concept that you want to look at is what are their specific needs. So again, when we talk of data, you want to use data to collect this type of information. So by investing your time, by investing your talent and your resources to understand what are the specific needs of your target market, that puts you in a much better position to now start thinking about innovating a product or innovating a service to reach those expectations and possibly exceed the expectation. Now, the third concept that I want to look at, as a rising star in business, you don't start based on speculation or a guesstimation. In getting into business, you also want to ask yourself, now that I know who's the target market, now that I know what are their specific needs, you want to ask yourself, do I have the ability to reach those expectations? Do I have the ability to exceed those expectations? Now, these are important concepts that you must take the time to ensure that you have honest answers to those questions. And this is three ways in how you can actually use data to start and scale your 6, 7, and 9 brand. When I come back, I will go a little deeper into this to ensure that you have a little bit bit more clarity, all right, in terms of how do we use data to make an informed and highly educated business decision. Just before I leave, however, I want to say something very quickly. As a rising star in business, how do you get to that point to actually predetermine if the market has the ability to generate millions, multi-millions, and billions of dollars? Again, data is what positions you to understand this. For example, I spoke earlier on about identifying your ideal client. As you identify your ideal client, you need to look at your market size. Your market size combined with the ability of the ideal client to spend is going to help you to come very close to predetermining the potential of that market to cash flow. So you now can make an informed and educated decision if it makes sense to become a fashion consultant, if it makes sense to become, a leader in a specific field, if it makes sense to build specialty to sell products and services in a particular area. You're using data to inform every decision that you're going to be making to start to scale your business. So with that being said, I'm going to pause here for now, and I'm going to open up now to Frank to really talk to us about leadership and how leadership influences a rising star in business ability to start and scale that 6, 7, and 9-figure brand. Frank, all to you, my friend.
Thanks. It's great being here once again. And as we look at building that 7-figure brand, one of the things that you need is a leadership mindset. Why a leadership mindset? Because it plays a crucial role in assisting you in building the 7-figure brands by shaping vision, by resilience, and strategic decision making. Those successful brand leaders that they cultivate a growth oriented mindset, which enables them to identify opportunities. They're able to pivot in response to challenges and maintain a long-term perspective. They also focus on value creation, which ensures that their brand delivers unique and compelling solutions to their target audience. Excuse me. Moreover, a strong leadership mindset fosters innovation and adaptability, which is essential for navigating competitive markets and also scaling operations effectively. The leaders who embrace continuous learning and mentorship empower their teams, foster a culture of excellence that propels growth. Additionally, emotional intelligence and strategic networking will help establish partnerships and credibility, which are critical for brand expansion. Ultimately, the mindset of a leader determines the brand's trajectory, influencing not only profitability, but also sustainability and impact in the marketplace. Let me give you some stories, for instance. Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, built her $1 billion brand through a leadership mindset, which was centered on resilience, which was centered on creativity, and there was an unwavering belief in her vision. She had no prior experience in fashion or manufacturing, but she bootstrapped the company by identifying a market gap and persistently pitching her idea despite multiple rejections. Blakely's ability to embrace failure as a learning opportunity and maintain a customer-centric approach helped Spanx grow into a global powerhouse. This other person, I don't really like talking about him, but Elon Musk exemplifies how visionary leadership influences brand success. His mindset of innovation and risk-taking has propelled companies like Tesla, SpaceX, to unprecedented height and must continuously challenge its industry norms, demonstrating that a relentless pursuit of excellence and an ability to think long term are crucial for scaling a brand. His leadership approach fosters a culture of high performance, and it drives Tesla from a smuggling startup to a dominant force in the electric vehicle market. This example that came to mind before Rihanna. Everyone knows about Rihanna, who leveraged her personal brand and business acumen to build Fenty Beauty into a multi-million-dollar company. You see, her leadership mindset focused on inclusivity and authenticity. I go again, inclusivity and authenticity, identifying a gap in the beauty industry for diverse and underrepresented skin tones. So by staying true to her values and using strategic partnerships with LMVH, she positioned Fenty Beauty as a trailblazer providing that leadership anchored in purpose, market awareness, which is a powerful driver of brand success. Now, the case studies that I highlighted, that beyond strategy and execution, it is the leader's mindset, which is characterized by resilience, which is characterized by innovation, characterized by adaptability and emotional intelligence that will ultimately determine whether a brand reaches a seven figure mark and go beyond. Thank you, Gary.
All right, thanks for that share, Frank. I trust that the audience is taking away the importance of leadership. And I just want to say very quickly, I love the names that you would have talked about. You know, Rihanna coming out of the Caribbean, or at least having some Caribbean roots and getting socialized into America. She made a statement for herself. Largely because of her leadership style. Elon Musk, regardless of the recent controversies that he has found himself in, I do believe that he has a historical record of what we call thinking outside the box and demonstrating an exceptional type of leadership in terms of business. So I definitely believe that those are good qualities of leadership that one needs to study. One needs to ensure that you have a clear interpretation of what that is and to apply that into business. So, love that share, Frank. I want to say this before coming to Kanchan that if you're a rising star in business and you need access to capital, I know you might be wondering, hey, I have a great business idea, but I just don't know how to access capital. I want to encourage you to look at the description of this video. And we have a number of businesses listed, a number of our business partners, they're listed, that is willing to support you to access capital, or you can reach out to us. So you can be in 50 states in the United States of America. Once you have a business and you need support to access capital, we can help you to do so. The icing on the cake is that we're going to help you to access capital. Guess what? With no collateral. Guess what else? The possibility exists that you can also access capital with 0% APR for 6 to about 24 months. All right. So do not allow the inability to access capital to prevent you from sourcing the most needed capital to grow and to scale your business. Kanchan, all to you.
Okay, so I think that what you said about data, I believe that data is one of the strongest foundation of smart scaling, because brands who are able to scale, like whether rapidly or slowly, they don't rely on gut, they rely on data. One of the differences between brands that fail and the ones that thrive is they measure everything from the sales trends to the customer behavior to the, like, where can we, to the supply chain inefficiencies, because sometimes that's kind of what eats up your profit. Is in my case is, like, for example, if I were to use different types of I deal with a lot of shipping, right, because it is involving imports. Now there are certain liners that charge really high pricing to bring goods in, and there are some that don't charge very high. There's also the factor of timing, like the sooner you, the if you choose a shorter transit time, like 33 days to get here as opposed to 51 days to get here, it also helps with your turnover of money, of the money that you invest in a deal. If I take the 33-day transit, it's like when it gets here, we deliver to the customer, we get paid, so that you can use that money to keep rolling then, so it's not too delayed, and we don't waste money on interest just because of waiting on the goods to come in. So supply chain inefficiencies is where really, for us, like, that tends to eat up the most profit if we don't do it well and if we don't plan it well. And so that is something that we use. I mean, looking at all this data combined is how we make the decision on pricing as well, because we know this ahead of time, right? So we can see, like, using this information, using the how much the warehouse is charging us to repack or to rework those goods, like to change the label, put a hang tag, every little thing has a price over here. So by using all that information combined is when then we can see, okay, so it's gonna cost us clean this much. How much should we sell it for? If we sell it for the margin we would like, does it work? Does it even work? or is it too much? If it's too much, okay, where can we save on our end so that we can cater to what the customers need? So yeah, the data is like the data is really the foundation for smart scaling. That's what I would say. And in regards to the customers, of course it's important to know who's buying, what are they buying, and why are they buying it. Like certain things don't sell. Like in my world, certain things don't sell because of the styling. Like the simplest example is a sweatshirt doesn't sell, but hoodies do. They are actually the same fabric being used, but the styling matters, because that's how we get feedback from the customers, is through the sales data too, right? Like what works, what doesn't work, what kind of pricing are they looking for. Because even the stores who come to us, they share with us that, hey, I need this to retail at 5.99, so how much can you give it to me for, so that they can also make their margin, and and be confident that when they bring it in, it's sellable. So in my world, of course, that is what, like that's what we have to kind of consider these points in order to be able to scale, to be able to scale well, and maybe not rapidly, but scale well. But also one thing that it just crossed my mind, yeah, that's very important. It's because something that we are going through right now is, there are certain businesses, you can say maybe smaller on the mid side, they're growing basically, but you don't have the capacity yet to kind of handle a too large of a deal. You want it, it will be good for the profit, yes, it'll be good for the company, but you don't have the bandwidth, you don't have this enough space, for example, you don't have enough, as in you have not handled such a big deal before, so you have to start from the ground up with, like, okay, how am I going to work on this so that my warehouse doesn't go crazy? How do I work on it so that we don't get burnt out? Because if we don't handle that well, it's going to affect all aspects of the movement, you know what I mean? Because that's what we are dealing with right now. Is, yes, we have handled large deals, but this time, like, we are faced with like much too large for our capacity. So we are kind of finding our footing right now, like, all right, how do we handle this? Because it's an awesome opportunity, it's awesome to work with a big brand, but we are trying to find footing in, all right, okay, this is not going fast enough, so we are not, like, we are trying to meet the customer's deadline, but we are doing it while struggling, because we are not many, I mean, because the warehouse is overloaded, like, something like that. So you have to be able to, like, if you foresee yourself wanting to take on such a huge deal, you have to have the bandwidth to at least, uh, to receive it, and be able to actually manage something that you can. I know in certain situations it's like, let's take it first and then we work on it when we are in it. Like, that mindset is also there, which makes sense. But at least when you are halfway clear with your planning, it also helps. Yes, you do learn more from experience, but with the halfway planning, at the very least, you are not going to be as burnt out, or you're not going to be as struggling, or at least you will know that, all right, if I'm going to take this on, I can cater to customer 1 till customer 10 on time, but 11, 12, 13, I'm going to have to ask for extension because I can't handle it. It minimizes the delays that you're also going to deal with,
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Yeah, so that's in my case, because it involves, bringing goods in, it involves deliveries, because they have deadlines, because in clothing you have seasons. So certain seasons, they don't want to carry winter stuff, like they give
Mm-hmm.
me a deadline, if you don't take this out, if you don't send us this by end of Feb, we're canceling on you. If it's hoodies, because they don't want to have that on the floor in March, like they want to start transitioning to spring items. So I think that bandwidth is very important as well. When you consider scaling, look at your bandwidth. It's not to say you shouldn't, it's to say you got to plan better. That's all. And if you need to add more people, do that. Like, we learn as we go, we'll find our footing as we go, but planning is as equally important.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Important. Well said, Kanchan.
Mhm.
Two things I want to follow you up on. I saw group much agree that data is the foundation to smart scaling. All
Mhm.
right. But today we find so many rising star gets into business, and it happens to be an emotional decision, not a
Mhm.
data driven decision. So, I trust that our listening audience can really take away the importance of data, but that's something that we're emphasizing here a lot.
Yeah.
Now, you also mentioned bandwidth, and there's a couple of things that I want to add to bandwidth. There's a concept that we talk about in one of my most recent books, and I talk about the MVO, your minimum viable offer, and I'm going to just shine some light on that. In starting a business, you have choices. For example, we talk about going to market with your minimum viable offer, going to market with your most viable offer,
Mhm.
or going to market with your maximum viable offer. Now, this is what we see. As a rising star in business, you have so many great ideas flowing around your head. And instead of going with your minimum or most viable offer, you end up going with your maximum viable offer, meaning that you're going to market with multiple value offer. But guess what, Kanchan? They don't have the bandwidth.
Mhm.
So when I hear you talk about bandwidth, I'm hearing the human bandwidth. I'm hearing
Yeah.
the technical bandwidth, and I'm hearing the capital bandwidth. They
Yeah.
don't have all of that at the initial stage of the business.
Hmm.
So they jump in, and because of that, they are stressed thin very fast, and that undermines the potential of that business to scale up. So I
Yeah.
really
And
love what you said. Go ahead.
if I can add, like, I mean, the capital part is crucial as well,
Mhm,
because like I said, like recently, like when we took on such a big project,
mhm,
we had to really see, we cannot, I mean, like, of course, the business depends on the rolling of the sales naturally, right? But if you want to take on more than you can chew, that you have to have some, like I said, the bandwidth of maybe adding more people in the warehouse, yes. But financial wise is also like, if you could add more capital to maybe a situation specific, like for example, hey, just for this project I do need the extra capital. When you actually acknowledge that and do something about it and actually get that capital, it'll also help you flowing faster, and you can estimate better that, all right, if I'm going to get this extra capital, what will my turnover be, how quick will it be, how quick can I settle this back, you know what I mean? So it
mhm,
also, like, of course, with proper planning, like the capital part is really crucial over here, because otherwise you want to take on big projects. All right, I'll make this a million purchase, and then you decide, oh no, like I struggle with the finance of it. Or maybe you tell the person, no, I'll pay you, like, part by part by part. Not only your rolling will become slow, it's also not practical for them. It also demotivates them to give you more.
mhm.
So in my
Yep.
case, like when I work with the brands, they're very fast. They're like yes or no. If like it's a yes,
Mhm,
we want it out from our warehouse by end of March, for example. So we are there like, we have two warehouses, but we are needing five. So we have to start calling and be like, okay, let's start from the ground up. What do we need to prepare? Okay,
mhm.
warehouses, great. Okay, financially, are we okay? If you're not okay, let's get more capital first. That's very important.
Yep.
So you
Yep.
have to do that. But again, with proper planning, you'll be okay, like to
Mhm,
work on that capital. If
mhm.
not, then you'll struggle in a lot of aspects too.
Yeah, one of the common channels that I see with rising stars in business also is that when it comes to the capital bandwidth, there's a major challenge because
Mhm.
they wait until they actually need the capital to
Yeah.
start preparing themselves for
Yeah.
capital access and trying to access capital. One of the things that we advocate a lot is that in building out your business ecosystem at the HR level, you should have an expert that if you don't know it, you have an expert that understands financial markets, that understands financial instruments. If not, you're likely to struggle. And I can say this from experience. We're interfacing with businesses from across the US,
Hmm.
and they are still struggling with access to capital, although that should not be
Be.
their reality. And that happens because, one, you find that enough persons in business do not understand capital market instruments. And what do I mean by that? You need to understand debt instruments and how debt instrument works. You need to understand credit instruments and how credit instrument works. You need to understand equity capital and how it works, hard money lending and how it works, things like line of credit and how it works. So when it comes to the bandwidth, the financial bandwidth and capital markets, there's so much for us to talk about, but I would leave that for another day. What I want us to do before coming over back to Frank, I want to expand a little bit more on data. And in starting the conversation, I clearly pointed out that if you are attempting to start and scale your 6, 7, and 9 figure brand, there's three things that you want to stand out in front of you on the points of data. One, who is your ideal client? Two, what are their specific needs? And three, do you have the ability to reach those specific needs and possibly exceed those specific needs? things. I want us to go a little deeper here because what I also recognize is that on the first point, who is your ideal client? I find it very often the rising star in business may say my ideal client is male or my ideal client is female, but that is not a true representation or a representation at all as to who is the ideal client. So what we have done, and I've documented this in chapters of my last book, to really understand the ideal client, there's a couple of things that you must be clear about. For example, you want to look at demographic classification, and I give a hint on that early on. You want to know if you're targeting people based on affluence, you're targeting people based on middle class or average class. You must make an honest and highly educated decision why you're choosing these demographic classification to target your goods and services at. The second concept that you want to look at is market viability. Before you start a business or attempt to scale a business, or you attempt to take debt, you attempt to borrow credit to pump into a business, it makes sense to take that time to assess if the market is viable. But how do you know if that market is viable? You need data. By looking at the demographic classification and then by looking at the size of that market, it's going to help you to come up with a fair assessment of the market ability to pay. But we need to go deeper. So we look at demographic classification. Now we look at market viability. So as you look at market size, density, and dispersion, it's going to help you to get some more clarity in terms of the viability of that market. We can go deeper into that, but I'm going to leave the deeper analysis for another day. What I'm saying here is that you don't know your ideal client unless you know the demographic classification. You don't know if it's your ideal client yet unless you can predetermine if the market is viable. And you find very often people don't have the data to make that informed and highly educated decision. Third, you want to know if you're reaching an urgent and immediate need. Very often we see many rising stars, they have an emotion that a product is going to do well in the market. And what you think they do? They simply start. And then they recognize that the demand is not high. Supply is good because you're supplying, but the demand is not there. But guess why you're struggling to make that sell? Because you didn't take the time to leverage data to assess how urgent the products and the service that you intend to bring to the market is to your ideal client. So when we are talking about identifying your ideal client, you want to know what's urgent to them. You must know what is urgent to them because what is urgent to them is going to predetermine how fast your business is going to cash flow. All right? It's going to determine that. So you need to take the time to collect the kind of data that will allow you to make that type of assessment. The fourth concept that I want to share here is accessibility. And Kanchan, you would know this because sometimes to access products, you got to travel around the world. You got to connect with people around the world. Sometimes to make a sale, if you're not thinking global, it's going to undermine how much sales you're making on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis. So you want to know the access points to access the ideal client. But how do you know the ideal client? Knowing those four things doesn't necessarily mean that they are your ideal client. The fifth thing that you want to consider is now that you have identified the demographic classification, now that you've identified the viability of the market, now that you've identified the urgency of the market, now that you've identified the accessibility of the market, you must ask yourself this: do they have the ability to pay? Because very often we position many rising stars in business. You start and scale your business and then you put your product out there without asking yourself, do they have this ability to pay? You may position your products in front of millions of people. It doesn't mean that that demographic has the ability to pay for your products. Everybody want to live in a fancy house, but you must ask yourself, do they have that kind of disposable income to rent your luxury apartment? So these are things you want. You want to have data on all of these things. So starting and scaling your 6, 7, and 9-figure brand is not imagination. It's not wishful thinking. It's about what the data is actually saying to you. All right. So when you now do that research and you collect the data, and the data is saying, yes, they have the ability to pay. In our program, we still push you to go one step further because the ability to pay does not constitute the willingness to pay. I repeat that. Someone may have the ability to pay you for goods and services. It doesn't mean that they have the willingness to pay for your goods and services. So if you cannot establish all of this before you start your business, you have some challenges down the road. But if you're able to collect this type of information and leverage the tools that's going to get you past the ability to pay to the point where your ideal clients, they now have this willingness to pay for your products and services, that's what's going to set you up for success. That's what's going to put you on the path to start and scale your 6, 7, and 9-figure brand. So it's important to understand these concepts that we are sharing when you're attempting to start your 6, 7, and 9-figure brand. I'm going to pause here for now. And when I come back, I will talk about mastering lead generation, because you can know everything that I have just said. But if your business is not generating leads, you're slowly dying. I repeat, if your business is not generating leads, your business is slowly dying. So you can kiss your dreams of starting and scaling your 6, 7, and 9-figure brand goodbye if you are not generating leads. All right. So I pause here for now. Master Frank, on to you.
I like the point that you just raised, especially because sometimes we look at people and we say, you know what, hey, that person could pay. The importer to the operation, what are they willing to pay? There's a part in leadership that speaks of influence. And as every budding rising star in business, leadership will teach you how to be influential. You need influence in your marketing. Whether you were a senior manager or the ordinary guy selling cigarette on the road, you have to know to influence people to come buy your products. Otherwise, another person can remain there.
Mhm.
How do you influence them is another thing. And later on, I can bring some teachings on influencing the market sphere or market environment. But I just want to continue talking to the leaders on mindset. Sometimes if we are speaking to persons who are not in developed countries, because I'm quite sure it's not only the developed world is looking at us. For all rising stars in business, developing the right leadership mindset is crucial, very crucial for building that 7-figure brand. And then the success in business is not just about having a great product or service, but it's about cultivating that resilience, cultivating the innovation, cultivating strategic thinking, cultivating influence. Entrepreneurs who embrace adaptability, vision, and a strong sense of purpose can scale their brands to remarkable heights, even in challenging environments. Let's look at a case study from Africa, Aliko Dangote. His vision and resilience in scaling $1 billion empire. You see, Aliko Dangote, he is Africa's richest man and the founder of the Dangote Group. He built his multi-billion dollar conglomerate by adopting a leadership mindset that is centered on long-term vision, on perseverance and value creation. He started as a small trading company in Nigeria, and he was able to identify opportunities in manufacturing and local production, shifting from importation, producing cement, sugar, flour, and other essential goods. His ability to think big, to reinvest profits into expansion and navigate economic and political challenges, position his brand as a dominant force in Africa's industrial sector. His story, therefore, teaches young entrepreneurs that resilience, reinvestment, and a bold vision can lead to extraordinary success. Strive Masiyiwa, innovation and problem solving and business growth. He is Zimbabwean entrepreneur and founder of Econet Wireless. He built his telecommunications empire despite facing immense regulatory and financial obstacles. So after a 5-year legal battle to obtain an operating license in Zimbabwe, Masiyiwa launched Econet Wireless, which rapidly expanded across Africa. His leadership mindset, which emphasized persistence, innovation, and social responsibility, helped Econet evolve into multi-billion-dollar brand. Masiyiwa's ability to turn challenges into opportunities, invest in digital transformation, and build strategic alliances has made him a role model African entrepreneurs looking to scale their businesses. Bethlehem Telahun Alimu, building a global brand from local craftsmanship. He's Ethiopian, and this Ethiopian entrepreneur, founder of Soul Rebels, transformed a small community-based shoemaking business into an internationally recognized eco-friendly footwear brand. brand. Bethlehem leveraged Africa's rich cultural heritage and sustainable materials to create a product with global appeal. And through strategic branding, storytelling, and e-commerce, he scaled Solo Rebel into a multi-million dollar business. Her leadership mindset focused on differentiation, sustainability, and leveraging technology, proving that the African entrepreneurs can build globally competitive brands while maintaining their culture authenticity. Another Nigerian, Jason Njuko, he's founder of Iroko TV. He recognized potential of African entertainment and pioneering online Nollywood streaming. And despite facing funding challenges and initial skepticism, Njuko's leadership mindset, which is basically focusing on digital innovation, content distribution, and customer accessibility, it helped Iroko TV grow into Africa's leading streaming service. What does his story illustrate? It illustrates the power of understanding market gaps, of embracing technology, and staying committed to long-term business growth. Now, there are lessons to be learned from these rising business leaders. First lesson is resilience and persistence. You see, success often comes after overcoming multiple failures and rejections. You need to stay committed to your vision, just like Dangote and Masiyiwa. The second lesson is innovation and adaptability. We need to embrace technology and new ways of doing business, just as Njuko did with Iroko TV. The third lesson is purpose-driven leadership. You need to build a brand with a strong identity and mission. And this is seen in Bethlehem's Soul Rebels. Strategic thinking and investment is a fourth lesson. Reinvest the profits for expansion and think long-term, a strategy that helped Dangote grow his empire. Finally, market awareness and value creation. Identify and fill gaps in the market, just as Rihanna did with Fenty Beauty and Njuko did with the Nollywood streaming. So by embracing a leadership mindset, prioritizes resilience, innovation, strategic growth, rising business stars in Africa has been able to build seven-figure brands that not only generate wealth, but also create lasting impact on the African continent and beyond.
Great share, Frank. What you have said goes to show that it is possible to start and scale your six, seven, and nine-figure brand, and it's possible anywhere in the world. It requires leadership, it requires value creation, it requires value, all the things you talk about. I love that you talk about influence and data, all right, and great concepts. Great concept. So I want to open up now to Kanchan, and when I come back, I will talk a bit about lead generation and how to use this tool to position yourself to really position your business, your brand to be more successful. Kanchan, on to you.
All right. So you mentioned earlier that you can use, as in you can use the data to scale your business in as in all parts of the world, like you were mentioning earlier. So I wanted to kind of piggyback on that. So what I wanted to say is, I think it's important that we also see, you know how you said earlier that accessibility is also important when you identify your ideal client. In identifying your ideal client, accessibility is important.
Yeah.
While we consider that, and yes, that's a very important matter to consider, but let's also consider what happens when your ideal client is less accessible, because that's also what I'm doing at the moment. Is I'm kind
Yeah.
of, while I do have my ideal clients here, and for this current project I'm working on, there are also those that I expected to be my ideal client, like not expected, like I know they are, but they are just not looking for what I have at the moment. So my solution to that would be looking for my ideal client elsewhere. So what I did was, as in, we had to monitor, like based on our history, like we know what store A, store B, store C likes to purchase from us. Now, like currently I'm working on a deal that involves Hanes brand, like what I said. So it's a major deal for us, so it's ongoing, and it's like a million units. It's like that we're slammed with a lot of merchandise, basically. So with the current situation of the market, not every store is willing to such quantities. Like not if they even want to take 100 grand at one go, it's like we would be thankful for that, but that's not the case. So what's happening right now is the stores want to take, but they like variety. They will take in total. For instance, if they're going to take 100 grand, they want a total of, it has to be 100 things in there, for example, instead of 5 items that's totaling up for 200 grand, which is kind of what we like actually, but that's not what you find lately. So we have to also strategize how to pivot. And what I was discussing with my boss about this, right? Because he was expecting, oh, this store is going to take this much for sure, because based on history, based on the data history, they have the capacity, their price is good, and they are likely going to take this item. And turns
Mm-hmm.
out his projection was wrong. For this time, they decided not to. They decided to take very little, actually, which of course made him a little bit scrambling. Like, like we
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
assuming this person would take this much based on projection, and we took on the risk of purchasing that for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
Now, then I asked him, I'm like, I know you don't, you see, you essentially don't like to work with other importers. I know that's not your biggest priority. You would rather sell it to stores as opposed to other importers, because it's essentially you're selling with someone on the same boat as you, okay, which doesn't
Mm-hmm.
really make sense. But I said, listen, if this is what we are dealing with, we have to pivot. There are people like you, importers, who don't get access to what we have. And if giving them at the price we want makes them be able to buy it, they have their own customers that we are not even involved in. It's a win win situation for us, right? At the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, you want to move inventory, you want to roll your money, get your money rolling, of course. You want to get it back sooner than later. So if your ideal customers are not as what you, not what you expect, they're not where they're at that we expect, you can always pivot. Which he wasn't considering. And he's like, I don't actually like the idea of us selling to other people who are importers and wholesalers like us. I'm like, but why not? They don't have the items that we have. So then he started to consider, and we start doing that. And that's actually not our ideal client, but they now become our ideal client, because we thought, hey, if an opportunity comes like this, we cannot shut the door to other importers. We should be open to them too, because if they have the capacity to take, capacity to pay, why not?
Mm-hmm.
So we tried to, I mean, then we started to sell to them. Bigger units started to move. Better for the money, better for the rolling, better for the warehouse. I'm not incurring so much storage. And then
Yeah.
I proposed to him again, I know we got a release for the brand to sell within the United States. Can you talk to the person to get, can you talk to Haynes, the main head of it, to get release for another country, like maybe next door, Canada? Because I do know people over there who could buy potentially, but they are going to need a release. So he said, okay, I'm going to ask. And he asked, he got it. So I called up the Canadian importer. I know, do you want some? Because I know he has the capacity to buy big. And the merchandise we have, which are basic tops, basic sportswear, basic t-shirts, but with a nice variety to it, like a raw edge neck. Like we had variations of what we had. So I just proposed to him, like, we have a lot of merchandise. Could you consider? Would you consider, like, if I were to show you these items, is it for your market or not? And he's like, oh yeah, your price is reasonable. These are kind of rather basic. It's a very day-to-day thing for me, and my customers, the stores over here in Canada, would like this. So we opened the door to him being cross-border, which is again an option he never considered before. So accessibility is not just something you depend on. For me, like, I don't think we should depend on, stores over here are accessible to us, yes, but you could also make people who you don't think are ideal clients, if you strategize well, they can get on board and become your ideal client. So
Yeah.
you could make that happen too, again, if you strategize well, because I see that they like the same things, they like the things that we have. It's just our boss's choice to initially to be like, nah, I don't want to sell to them, because they're kind of on the same boat as us, was kind of the image that's making him shut the door. Which I'm like, nah, you got to open your doors. If this is the kind of units we are dealing with, millions and millions, you got to open your door to everyone. If we're just dealing with 10,000 pieces, you can sell it to 3 stores and you're done. Fine. That I agree with that. But with millions, you want to have access to everybody, because you never know what, person A can like item A and person B can like item C, D, E. And another person can, the next thing you're sold out, which is good. It's a good thing. And you be open to, and like I tell him also, like, to the stores, naturally we can sell at a higher margin because they're direct stores, right? But if we're going to sell to somebody who's an importer like us, we have to drop our margin, but we can strategize and tell them, listen, minimum you have to take is 100 grand, then we'll sell it to you at this price. It helps your
Mm.
units, it helps your money turnover quicker, but also helps your warehouse. They're not just sitting on a gazillion goods. So
Yeah.
it helps to move. That's my point. Like, if your like, don't ever think that your customers are not accessible. You could turn somebody into your customers. Of course,
Yeah.
provided they're in the same industry, you could figure out to be like, this is what I don't want to sell to, but you got to, like, look past your what I want and what I don't want and see what's the best for your business. It's
Mm-hmm.
crucial. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that.
Uh, Great points, Kanchan. You see, the beauty about data
Mhm,
and why it is so important is that data is not static.
mhm,
Data is changing. And that is why it is so important to understand what we call the ecosystem of data. There's four important concepts that you must learn, apply, and master as it relates to data. The first aspect is data collection. You must collect the information. Second is data analytics. You must have the mindset to analyze what is in front of you so you can make better, smarter, wiser business decisions. And then third is what we call the data leverage. You want to know that you can leverage the data in the right way. And last but not least, and here's where you were talking about Kanchan, is what we call data mitigation. Because data is not change, data is not static, it's changing.
mhm.
You have to know when to pivot. You have to know when to, change with changing market realities. And that's what you talk about there, Kanchan. I mean, you were supplying, your team had grown accustomed supplying X amount of products to a particular vendor. The vendor changed, and that could have created a situation where you have massive loss of income. So what you guys did very quickly, you pivot, you mitigate market realities, and you find new buyers, and you position the products now in front of the new buyers. And I want to say, kudos to you and your team, because sometimes doing that is not the easiest thing. Many persons get caught up in their comfort zone,
Mhm.
and when it comes now to pivoting based on market changes, mentally they are not prepared to change with those
Yeah.
changes. They become stuck and they become obsolete and they become outdated. Yeah, you want to say something?
And no, what I wanted to say is, what, yeah, you're right. Like initially, my boss was like quite rigid about it, because when I suggested why don't we sell to these importers who actually have the capacity to buy units like us, at least a
Mm-hmm,
lot of units would move. You'll get good movement. He was
mm-hmm,
opposed to it because he's like, I don't like the idea of us selling to people who are equated like our competitors. Essentially, it's like that's what I'm suggesting. So I'm like, well,
mm-hmm,
if they don't have what you have, number one, it doesn't make them your competition. You just have to be smart enough to sell to another wholesaler, making a different margin, but we strategize
mm-hmm.
in moving units. And number two, there are always times where you can turn your competition into your ally, in this case, if you strategize well. Like we have
Exactly.
to learn to not let our own, like I said, like our own views, our own mindset sometimes can be our own block. Like you have
You
to
got
learn
it.
to get creative,
Mhm.
because it's not for the my betterment, it's for the betterment of the business. When the business keeps running, my well-being is good. If it doesn't
You
run,
got it.
we
You
have
got
no
it.
place there. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to get an ego out of the way,
Yeah.
and you
Now he
got to
starts to
just.
be, now he starts to be okay with it. The moment they were like I had the Canadian importer actually come to the office. Sorry, no, I sold to him first while he was still in Montreal, and then he just randomly called over the weekend, and be like, hey, you know what? I'm actually going to Jersey to see some goods. I'm gonna drop by to your office. I'm like, okay, this will be very awkward, but sure, yes, come over. So he comes. I introduce him to my boss. I'm like, this is the guy I actually know and I worked from before, and
Mm-hmm,
I mean, he has the capacity to buy goods, but his prices are sharp. So we can strategize and we can say minimum you must take 100 grand units. He's like,
mm-hmm,
okay. He was like, but then it's like, okay, fine. You already told him to come over. I'm like, yes, I purposely did. So he came over. My boss sat with me with the meeting. He turned out to really like his personality too. So he was like, okay, I think I'm comfortable selling to him. And he really gave goods. And I made I already told the guy beforehand, if you are intending to buy over 100 grand, I'll make things work for you. I will smooth things over. I'll speak to my boss first so that he can consider. And he came in buying 140 grand, which is
mm-hmm.
good. Like units, in terms of units, I'm talking about, not
Yeah.
money, units. Yeah. So,
Mm-hmm,
which is fine for my boss, is like, oh my god, yeah. And then he sees his capacity that like he requested, like, okay, this is worth a lot, like would you send us a deposit or something? Because sometimes the nature of this business is people don't send a deposit as much. They send a little bit or they don't. They'll say, upon you being ready with your goods, you say, okay, it's 100% ready, come and pick up. That's when we request them, you pay in full, and they do it. But in this case, like, he's also trying to show trust to my boss and be like, the next day he just sent like a chunk of money, basically, like to our account, and be like, here you go, this is like for me to show you my word is my bond, I will take it. But you just have
mm-hmm.
to help me send in stages, because my issue in Canada is also space. So that's what I adjust with him. I'm like, okay, we're gonna make your delivery in batches. So that's what I adjust with the warehouse. Okay, send him this one first, and then we gap it 1 week, and then we send another one. So he's also like adjusting in his side. So we work together. And since then, my boss is like, can you show him more stuff so that we can sell him more stuff? Because it's liquid. I'm like, there you go. That used to be a guy you don't even want to look at his face, but now he's your new favorite man.
Got it, got it. So what you're talking about there too, also Kanchan, you guys reached a challenge
Mhm.
where the regular vendor reduced their request for goods.
Mhm.
So stocks would have left on your hands. What you did is call also lead generation. You look for leads that can take those products off your hands,
Mhm.
and you found the lead that your boss is now all excited about and is now encouraging you to put more products in front of that client's
You
hand.
know that
Yes.
one situation has allowed him to be more open as well,
Okay.
to
Mm,
supplying to Panama, to supplying
mm,
to, I think it was Venezuela he got, and Peru. So he was getting offers from there, which he was like, how am I gonna work on this? Like he just, he was like a yes, but leaning towards, I don't know how to work on this. Now he's like more pumped and be like, oh yeah, all right, let's consider this now. So
right.
we're going after them too. Okay.
Awesome, awesome. What I want to share now with the public is that any attempt to start and scale your six, seven, and nine figure brand, you need to understand the concept that we are talking about, which is the client conversion ladder. Kanchan just gave a very graphical imagery of what that can look like. For example, she recognized a challenge was in front of them, and she literally used her knowledge, her expertise to start to connect with potential buyers. There's a ladder. What she did, largely because she had the relationship with some of these players in the market, she were able to leverage relationships to create that sale and to continue the flow of business, continue the flow of sales, continue the flow of income, business being viable. We have developed a unique system that we call the client conversion ladder. And when you want to start that business and scale that business into a six, seven, and nine figure brand, you need to understand these tools. All right. Our tools walk you through a number of important concepts. We talk about things like what is your relationship vocabulary? Business is a relationship game. You need to invest in building healthy, productive relationships with the right people. If you're not building relationships, you're going to have a tremendous challenge to cash flow your business. For me, it's better for you to have relationship with people than to say have a client.
Yeah.
My aim is to try to make all of my clients, buddies. We have that relationship. We have that good thing going. We talk about visibility. We talk about reach. We talk about impact. We talk about client conversion. We talk about confidence, trust, and credibility. All of these things are things that you need to know, because if you don't know them to the extent to apply them and master them to get the results that you want in starting and scaling that six, seven, and nine figure brand, you can say goodbye to your dreams. So there's a process. There's a process. There are steps. And what we are doing here is sharing our experiences with you to let you know, hey, it's possible. But what is your SOP? As I said last week, when we talk, we're talking from our SOPs, our standard operating procedures that has worked many, many, many times. All right, so you can take a page. I want to also say this as we begin to wrap up. Kanchan is a mentor. She mentor businesses, young rising stars in business. Frank, he's a mentor. He has been a lecturer at UWI, which is one of the top universities in the Caribbean. So you're not talking to any novice here. I have lectured at American University of Peace Studies. I have years of experience doing what we're doing. We're doing this because we want to help. All right. We want to help you to overcome some of the challenges in starting and scaling your business. So I want to encourage you, if you need more information, feel free to reach out. All right, to Seven Figure Media, and I'll be happy to have any of my team member provide you with the kind of support so you have more clarity on practical steps that you can take to position your business for greatness. So I'm going to pause here for now, and I'm going to ask my team now to start to give us their closing remarks. Who wants to go first? Frank, the lady opened the door for you.
I'll walk right through it. So let me close up by saying to all those rising stars in business that the path to building a seven-figure brand is not just about having a great idea. It's about adopting the right leadership mindset. Success requires resilience in the face of challenges, innovation to stay ahead of the curve, and a strategic vision that turns obstacles into opportunities. The stories I told you about Aliko Dangote, Strive Masiwa, Bethlehem Tilawan Alimu, and Jason Njuku prove that with determination, with adaptability, and a commitment to value creation. These African entrepreneurs build brands that compete on a global scale. Your journey starts with the mindset you cultivate today. My encouragement to you is dream big, stay focused, lead with purpose. Your breakthrough is closer than you think. So keep pushing forward.
All right, thanks for that share, Frank. And I love the examples that you give from Africa. And when you come right back home to America, and we can look at the men who built America, and all of those guys, believe me, they start from rock bottom. The Rockefellers. I mean, when you go into the story of the Rockefeller, I mean, the Rockefeller, his dad was like orangutan, but he, turned out to be different. With struggles, he borrowed some money from his mom because he wanted to go do entrepreneurship. He went into it, he raised capital, went into to boating, where you were shipping goods from one part of the world to the other side of the world and distributing that. And, you rise from the struggles into massive triumph where he became one of the richest people, richest person in the world. And we can look at all the stories of the men who built America, and all of them have similar experiences. But Frank, I really love that. You talk about leadership, and you're representing a portfolio, Frank, that you have to sound a much louder bell, a louder voice on leadership. I see there are many persons, they struggle with what I call a leadership deficit. And what do I mean by that? They have very great ideas, all right, very exceptional thoughts. But guess what? The leadership ability to get out there and brace the wall down and push it down and to, struggle and make things happen, they don't have that leadership fight. So your portfolio that really helps people to understand how to become that transformational leader, that go-getter leader, that leader that makes things happen, is so fundamental in today's world. I think sometimes people give up too easy and too early, which undermines, their challenge for success. We were talking about Elon Musk earlier, and I can recall listening to part of his story where he talked about some of his challenges. And he's into SpaceX, and he said the people that inspired him to get into to that industry literally front on him. They rejected him. And could you imagine the state of mind that anyone would be in, that the people that are inspire you to go into a particular field reject you? But he grew through all of that, and fortunately, being a true leader, he held to his guns and he held his feet on the ground, and he pushed through, and he's making great things happen. And that again is a testimony of great leadership. And what I've learned is that when you have a vision, it's your vision. Sometimes the people around you will never understand your vision until you make that breakthrough and things start to happen. And sometimes when you believe in yourself and believe in your vision enough, you got to press on in spite of who is cheering you on and who is not cheering you on. You got to believe in yourself. And that's where, Frank, I believe that your platform, Teaching Leadership, is really going to help people to, build from within, and then they can build outwards. Thanks for that share. Kanchan? Yeah.
Okay, fine. My closing remark would be a seven-figure brand isn't built by selling to everyone. It's built by knowing exactly who to serve, how to reach them, and most importantly is how to become indispensable. That's all. I'm keeping it short.
I love how you started. It's not about selling to everyone.
Yeah. No.
That is the biggest misconception people can have, and I want to assure that people do have this. Believe that when they have a product or a service, it's for everyone. And
Mm,
I would say no, 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 no. That's the biggest mistakes that you can make. So that's a very profound statement that you've made there. And thanks for sharing, Kensha. In closing, I just want to say, my friends, I trust that you would have enjoyed today's program set from Seven Figure Media. And we looked at today how to build your seven figure brand. And if you need more information, I do encourage you to feel free to reach out to us. We're here to provide that type of support for you. Again, if you are living in the US and you need capital, regardless of the state that you're living in, we can help you access capital. One, at 0% APR, two, collateral free. So you don't have to have collateral to get capital. We can support you with all of that. I want to thank Kanchan for being here today. Young but extremely talented. I want to thank Clement for being here. He's one of the wiser guys in the room.
Ah, ah, it's all right.
Gotcha, that means that we have his approval, right? we have his endorsement, right? Thanks for that, Frank. All right, Frankie is an economist by profession, and he's an author of multiple books, and he is truly passionate about leadership. All right, so I want to encourage you to keep following us to learn more of practical steps that you can take to start and scale your 6, 7, and 9 figure brand. Be blessed and see you next week. Can you imagine being the speaker who's able to speak and inspire your audience? Well, you don't have to imagine, because all of this is possible with 7 Figure Media. They have designed a very unique platform titled Public Speaking Made Simple that not only equips you with the tools to speak to inspire and empower, but in the case that you're a sales communication professional, it gives you the tools to connect with your audience and increase significantly your sales outcome. Reach out to 7 Figure Media and get to learn more about their program, Public Speaking Made Simple, that can literally transform your life.